If you believe hip-hop drama only explodes when someone drops a diss track, it might be time to rethink that assumption. Not every battle begins in a recording studio. Not every clash arrives with heavy bass, sharp punchlines, and a producer. Tags stamped across the intro. Sometimes they arrive wrapped in velvet, fastened with gold, and uploaded to Instagram under flawless lighting. This time, the spark was not a song, it was a bracelet. Not just any bracelet, but a black onyx and gold Alhambra piece from Van Cleef. And our pals, a brand that carries undeniable weight in celebrity culture. It sounded theatrical. But if you watched the way it played out online, you understood quickly that it was never really about jewelry. It was about pride. It was about public image. It was about timing. And most of all, it was about who controls the narrative when one highly publicized relationship ends and another begins under a spotlight. The Valentine's Day that changed the tone on February 14, 2026, while most couples exchanged modest gifts, flowers from a grocery store, a completely different direction. He staged an experience. The setting was a beach, but not a casual sunset stroll. This was cinematic. And above it all, there were skywriting actual letters carved into the blue horizon. A multi-division world champion known for her dominance in the ring, her discipline, and her historic achievements in boxing. On this particular day, however, she was not inside a ring. She was at the center of a grand romantic production. Then came the moment that sent timelines into overdrive. Papoose presented her with a black onyx and gold Alhambra bracelet from Van Cleef & Arpels. It was not slipped on quietly. It was displayed, highlighted, and captured from multiple angles. The bracelet gleamed in the sunlight. It signals status. It signals serious financial investment. It signals intention. When someone gifts that brand publicly, especially in a production of that magnitude, it sends a message whether they intend it to or not. People did not simply see a Valentine's Day gift. They saw a statement. It felt like an announcement. This is who I'm choosing. This is who I'm celebrating. This is who I'm investing in. And the internet reacted immediately. The relationship. For years, Remy Ma and Papoose were viewed as one of hip-hop's most resilient couples. Their relationship survived prison sentences, public scrutiny, industry pressure, and the everyday strain of fame. To many fans, they were not just partners, they were symbolic. They represented commitment in a culture often criticized for instability. Their separation did not unfold quietly. It happened in fragments, public statements, alleged leaked messages, accusations circulating across blogs, rumors of divorce discussions, claims of emotional conflict. Stories were planted. Stories were denied. The once celebrated love story grew complicated and eventually messy. And somewhere in that unraveling, Claressa Shields' name entered the conversation, not only as a decorated athlete. So when Valentine's Day 2026 arrived complete with skywriting and luxury jewelry, it did not feel random, it felt timed. And timing matters. The post that shifted everything as drone footage circulated in fashion blogs estimated the bracelet's value. Remy Ma did something unexpected. She did not go live. She did not post a lengthy explanation. She did not accuse anyone of anything. She posted a single photo. Just her wrist. Some diamonds studded. Different styles layered together effortlessly. Underneath the image, she wrote one word, layers. That was it. No hashtags. No emotional paragraphs, no public meltdown, just layers. And somehow, that quiet post felt louder than the skywriting. The message was clear without being explicit. While one bracelet was being introduced as a grand romantic milestone, Remy demonstrated she'd been collecting them for years long before this public shift, long before this new relationship dominated headlines. It was not about competing for attention, it was about history. Why layers carried so much weight, the word did more than reference stacked jewelry. It suggested depth, experience, longevity. It hinted at something built slowly over time rather than presented all at once in cinematic fashion. People interpreted it differently. Some saw it as a subtle flex, others called it dignified. Some labeled it petty, others described it as brilliant strategy. But nearly everyone agreed on one thing: it was calculated. Remy did not need a drone. She did not need roses in the sand. She did not need a cinematic production. Already built that lifestyle. Already established that legacy. In an era Where oversharing is currency, restraint can feel revolutionary. The scoreboard effect of luxury and celebrity culture, luxury items rarely remain personal. They become symbols, status markers, silent announcements. One bracelet can communicate, "I am valued." A stack of bracelets can communicate, "I have always been valued." It turned into an unspoken scoreboard. Who wore it first? Who had more? Who had history? But when everything unfolds publicly, symbolism becomes unavoidable. And both women were speaking it just in different dialects. The alleged response shortly after Remy's post, fans circulated screenshots suggesting that Claressa Shields shared another bracelet image with a caption implying she was the real partner. Whether it was intended as shade or simple celebration, it fueled the conversation. Here is an interesting reality about social media dynamics. The person who posts once and goes quiet often appears calmer than the person who continues responding. Remy made her statement and disappeared. If Claressa responded again, even subtly, it shifted perception. It suggested that the first post landed harder than expected. In the court of public opinion, appearing unbothered often wins. Love or narrative control? A grand way. Some people genuinely love elaborate gestures. Some relationships thrive on public displays. Romance does not have to be small to be sincere, but context changes reception. When headlines have been messy for months, when public controversy lingers, a highly produced romantic display does not land quietly. It becomes a headline by default. Celebrity relationships today are not only personal, they are narratives unfolding in real time, and narratives are shaped intentionally. Something visually beautiful and highly shareable, something that floods search results with positive imagery. That does not mean the love is fabricated. It means the optics matter, and Remy's layers post disrupted that redirection. She did not argue facts. She did not reveal private details. She did not ask for sympathy. She simply reminded the audience that her chapter cannot be erased. The psychology beneath the surface: when someone moves on publicly after a long relationship, there is often invisible pressure to prove something, to prove happiness, growth, certainty. Sometimes that pressure manifests in grand gestures. The yin seem decide that bigger the doubt, the bigger the display. It is human nature. But genuine security usually feels steady. It does not rush to convince. It does not need applause. That is why Remy's approach resonated with so many observers. It felt grounded, controlled, intentional. It did not scream. It whispered and still commanded attention. Legacy versus new beginnings, online debates quickly evolved beyond jewelry. Some fans argued that Remy represented shared history, cultural. Others defended Claressa as a dominant champion in her own lane, a woman whose achievements in boxing stand independently of any relationship. It was about legacy versus new beginnings. Remy symbolized history. Claressa symbolized the present. And when luxury jewelry entered that conversation, it became symbolic currency. Was this? The bracelet mattered not because of its price tag, but because of what people projected onto it. She did not overshare. She did not spiral publicly. She posted once and allowed the internet to debate on her behalf. In a culture that rewards volume, silence can be powerful. Her response illustrated something many people struggle with after a breakup: dignity. Instead of arguing for validation, she demonstrated self-assurance. That is why so many viewers described it as a masterclass in composure. When Instagram becomes an arena, social media has fundamentally changed how relationships unfold. Anniversaries become content. Gifts become headlines. Vacations become evidence. Once posted, moments become public property, open to interpretation, analysis, and judgment. In this case, Instagram became an arena. Bracelets became symbols. Captions became strategies. Timing became everything. There were no diss tracks, no televised interviews, just images. And yet, the impact felt just as intense as any lyrical battle. So who won? If you measure by spectacle, the Valentine's Day beach production was unforgettable. If you measure by narrative impact, the single-word layers may have shifted the conversation more effectively. But perhaps this was never about winning. Perhaps it is about how fragile public perception can be. Perhaps it is about how easily love can be interpreted as performance once cameras are involved. Perhaps it reveals the uncomfortable truth that in celebrity culture, very little feels accidental. The bigger takeaways strip away the fame, the brand names, the drones, and the luxury setting. And the story becomes deeply relatable. Most people have watched someone move on. Most people have felt the sting of comparison. Most people have wondered whether they were fully valued. The difference is that most of us do not experience those moments under a global spotlight. It is not always cinematic. It is not always expensive. Sometimes the strongest move is composure. Sometimes it is a single word. Sometimes it is understanding that legacy does not disappear simply because someone else posts a highlight reel. In the end, the Van Cleef War was never truly about black onyx or gold. It was about perception. It was about the subtle art of saying everything without saying too much. And in that arena, silence can be sharper than any diss track.